Why, hello there, my beautiful audience. It's my favorite time of the year to talk about more movies, because I clearly haven't done that enough yet. Welcome to another episode of Pop Talk. I'm your host, Cody MacDonald, and today, I'm joined again by two fellows that last time we talked, it was about 1970s films, coincidentally.
That's right.
How you doing, Hunter Birch?
I'm doing quite well. It's nice to get another opportunity to join, so to speak, and I'm really excited about today's topic.
It's Pop Talk, excuse me.
Pop Talk.
Not
My
so
bad.
to speak.
I apologize.
No disrespect.
Apologies to the lawyers.
No disrespect to the people over. Exactly. No disrespect to my bosses. But, yeah. Pop Talk. It's its own thing. It's its own monster.
Yeah, we talk about good movies here.
Oh! All right, well, I guess I'm fired after this. This is my last show. Damn it.
It was a nice run.
It was a good run. It was kind of quick, but And then, also, I have Patrick with me. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, too. Excited to talk about one of my favorite filmmakers today.
Yeah. Let's not waste any time. Let's jump in it, shall we? Denis Villeneuve. We all know who he is. The French-Canadian filmmaker who's made quite a name for himself in the past 10 years, I should say.
Oh, yes.
I mean, let's start with you, Hunter. How do you feel about him as a director? Let's just give everybody who's listening a little bit of an introduction on who he is. How do we feel about him? Let's go around the table, shall we?
All right. How do I feel about him as a director? To me, it sounds a bit pretentious, but to me, he's one of the last great storytellers we have, and someone who renews my faith in why I enjoy the visual medium of film so much. Because I think, honestly, you know what it is? He just loves telling stories. And he's excited about it. He's passionate about it. And no matter what, and he's able to take a lot of genre content that I love and infuse it with a tone that I always love seeing in these types of films. And it's ironic that you talked about, last time we talked, it was all about the 1970s. I think he's brought back that kind of pacing to his films where a lot of them are character pieces. You're able to flesh things out. Things are able to breathe. And
I agree.
He's someone who clearly loves what he does. And I think that's honestly all he's trying to do, and that's why he stands out, because it is a rarity these days. And I want to give him a great big hug.
He would definitely retort, because he's Canadian. He seems like he's a friendly guy.
Yes.
From all the interviews that I've seen of him, he just seems so humble, and he's very he just seems like he's just very kind of, I think Pat and I figured this about him, is that he's kind of an introvert. I get kind of tendencies where he's kind of shy. I mean, he's definitely takes a second to translate things to English, because English is not his first language; it's French. But he's very collective in his thoughts. He's very passionate in what he wants to say, and I don't think he shies away from at least admitting that he has what all directors have: an ego. He's actually not afraid to admit it sometimes. He says, I get kind of ahead of myself sometimes, but I have to, boil it down and just put the story and the characters and the performances before my own tendencies. And it shows. It really does show. I mean, a lot of people are afraid to admit that. And it's funny that you actually said about the he kind of brings back that kind of feel of movies from the 70s. I would actually go as far back to say he brings back things from the 60s. There's grand films from the 1960s. I mean, we'll talk about it later on, but there's a certain film that kind of brings me some Lawrence of Arabia vibes in terms of its landscapes and its sort of settling on kind of wider shots and that pace. And obviously 2001 A Space Odyssey has a little bit of that grand visuals that just kind of lingers, and it's kind of almost hypnotic in a way.
Yeah.
What about you, Pat? How do you feel about Danny? Danny? Oh, hi,
Well,
Danny.
obviously I love Denis. Just because it's been, God, I think it's been like 6, 7, 8 years, something like that, since I first got into him. I've always just loved the fact that like it's good to find like another Canadian filmmaker who's one of the best out there. Shit, I had another point, but I completely lost it.
There's so much to say about him. It's understandable.
There really is.
Yeah.
It's true.
But yeah, I completely lost where I was going with that. Wow.
Okay, if you do remember it, just interrupt any of us and just get that point across.
All right.
No, I think it's safe to say it's understandable, Pax. I think he's one of the few who we'd all be starstruck by.
Yeah.
I want to know the moment for you guys. Like, when was it he became like a director you really wanted to follow?
For me, it was actually like quite early on. Basically, the moment I got introduced to him, I realized he was something special. I'd learned about him through Red Letter Media, actually, when they did a review of his movie Enemy. I was curious about it, so I checked it out, and then after that I just started going backwards through his filmography, and, when Sicario came out, I saw that as well, and basically I loved everything I had seen from him at the time, so I knew I had to keep track of him from there on out.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I think for me it was it started when my older brother recommended the film Sicario, and my older brother is like he's much more cynical than I am. He doesn't like any movies, so for him to recommend a film, that's the highest praise I can think of. And then I watched Sicario and I thought this is really good, because you get a dime a dozen films that are about anti-terrorism, drug cartel, and that one had a. Not only something to say, it was the way he was saying it, but the real moment it did it for me was, I think, Arrival.
Yes.
Because I don't know if any of you remember 2016. 2016 was a dull year for movies.
Yes.
It was so dull. It was, if you want to be entertained, you go to television that year. But Arrival was something, you hear, an alien invasion. Oh, okay, we've seen it all before. No. This invasion film was clever. It was smart. It had something to say. It was actually about something, communication, which is something I think we can all relate to, them being problems in the world. And I thought,
preach.
I don't remember the last. I think the last time this was addressed was honestly like a film attempting this kind of tone was honestly The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far back. I would say maybe like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, or.
Well, I mean, as far as making contact and then the film staying in contact with them throughout.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's true.
And I just remember thinking, okay, this is someone who clearly isn't just in it for the explosions and the booms and the high speed car chases. No. This guy's about something. So I wanted to pay attention. Then from there, and then I went back, saw his earlier work, and everything since then. They've generally been at the top of my end of the year lists every year he's made a movie.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, it's funny with me is that, like, I always wanted to find a director that I can gravitate to. Like, of course you have, like, the favorites, like Tarantino, Spielberg, Fincher, but when I was starting to try to figure out, like, what's my taste in film and also what are, like, the types of movies I want to make, I always had this discussion with friends where it's like, it'd be cool to sort of make like a combination of like the world of Kubrick and the world of Spielberg, where a film that's sort of trying to work your like a film.
That was the point I was gonna say.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
That's what it was.
I jogged your memory. Okay, so how would I take it from here? Because I think Pat and I share the same testaments, actually.
That's a brilliant way to put it. That's a brilliant way to put it.
But I've always wanted to...
Like, people always... Like, I've always seen people say Christopher Nolan is the middle ground of the Kubrick and Spielberg, but I always felt that Denis was, like, the more natural middle ground between them. Like, he isn't trying to be one or the other. He just is his own thing that just happens to land right in the middle.
Yeah, like he does like a nice balance of both worlds of like trying to make something like artistic or entertaining, and there's sort of like a layer of it being abstract and also literal, and it's trying to work your heart and your mind at the same time. And I mean, I always saw like films like that, but they were always so kind of smaller and not really known, and I have to kind of push it on people to watch. But like, there's never been a director that's done that like throughout his whole filmography. And same with you, Pat, actually. Like, the first film I watched of his was Enemy, and then I loved that movie so much. Actually, funny enough, I remember watching Enemy and Under the Skin the same night, and by the end of that night, my brain was literally melted of just like, oh my god, I'm overthinking everything. Like, it's so abstract. Oh my god. And then shortly after that, I think I like stumbled on Sicario, and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. Like, I know we'll get to like our thoughts generally on it, and then like Prisoners. And I think I remember running into you, Pat, at like the theater. You were seeing something, and my friend Cage and I, we were just coming out of the theater, and you told me, hey, did you hear the news that that director that did Enemy and Prisoners is doing the new Blade Runner? And I was like, oh, what? It's not going to be Ridley Scott?
Yeah.
I was like,
I remember
no.
you were upset about it at the time.
But then we flash forward.
I was the one who was like, no,
yeah.
It's going to work.
I was like, okay, maybe I'll... But, and you flash forward a year later when Veronica and I went to go see Arrival at TIFF. My whole perception of him changed, and it was love at first sight. It was love. I fell in love with this man.
Love it. Sounds like more like love at fourth sight for you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in terms of that but in terms of that sci-fi, like that type of science fiction, I've always wanted to see. But we'll definitely get into that. So tonight's format, we'll just definitely start off with like his earlier Canadian films, leading all the way up until the films that everybody kind of knows generally about him today. So yeah, let's start all the way back to 1998 with August 32nd on Earth, a film about a woman who, after she gets into a tragic car accident and she survives, she drags her friend, drags her friend all the way to the desert in Utah, and tries to kind of persuade him to help her conceive a baby, because I think that's sort of her way of dealing with grief. And it kind of just goes from there, of their banter and their chemistry, and it's kind of comedic. And Hunter, what did you think of this film?
I really liked it. It's I always think the best debut films are things that should be really personal to him. And if you look at Denis' filmography, there's generally certain sub-themes that play throughout it. And I think this is the first indication that the idea of getting by tragedy and the wanting to conceive is definitely something that's there throughout. And I thought, I'm not sure if this was a student film of his or just his first real outing that he did on his own once he
this was his first outing.
This wasn't first outing. Yes,
this wasn't a student film. This actually was his like very first attempt to make a feature after doing several shorts in the 90s.
Oh, my mistake. Yeah, I thought even for this being his first outing, it's really, really touching. I like his sense of comedy throughout it, and even a simple small story like this, it just has such a very warm visual appeal to it that I found really, really, really inspiring.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Pat?
What I always felt about this, because I remember when we went to see it at the Lightbox, I was worried because I'm like, okay, it's his first movie. I thought back to Stanley Kubrick and how his first movie wasn't exactly very good, so I thought that was what was going to happen with this.
Oh, so Fear and Desire.
Yeah. So I was pleasantly surprised to find that this was a nice, fun movie that still had some heart to it. So, like, it was pretty well made for, like, a low budget, and the fact that they even, like, went out to Utah to film, like, parts of it was interesting, that they actually had multiple locations.
Mm-hmm.
But,
yeah, it's certainly a film that has a lot of energy to it, and it's funny compared to the films that he's doing today. he certainly just got that sort of style out of the way early of just making such a fast-paced movie. And I think I remember him saying like and it makes sense when you hear this, is that like he wanted to make this almost like a love letter to like the French New Wave films of the 1960s, like the Jean-Luc Godard, and like, and I'm like, oh, now it makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. The problem is I don't remember much of it, and I don't remember if I liked the ending. It just didn't click with me.
I remember you not really liking the ending. The ending worked for the most part for me, but I do remember enjoying the movie, especially because of that fast pace, because I wasn't used to that from him, so
yeah,
it was a nice change of pace.
That's what's so surprising about it too. Like, I think I would give it a solid 8. I still enjoyed it. I just, yeah, for a first effort, I would say it's actually pretty solid.
Well, I think the job of any first effort is just to illustrate, not so much as it like when you're an actor, but much more so as a director, is kind of who you are and what you can bring. And in my eyes, he definitely accomplished that.
What would you give it?
Oh, I'd give it an 8 as well.
Okay.
For first effort, very strong.
What about you, Pat?
I would probably give it a 7. I think it's a really good first effort, and it's very enjoyable, but not the most memorable.
Yeah. So it did get a little bit of attention. Like I think Alliance, which I guess was more of a company that was helping out like Canadian films at the time, like try to get like kind of independent films a little bit more recognition. So I guess his next film as well in 2000, Maelstrom, was also a film that was released under the belt of Alliance. And this film was also a movie about a woman after suffering a car accident and how she deals with grief. And it's funny, I think Pat...
Noticing a trend here.
Yeah, well, I think Pat, you actually noticed that most of his, with the exception of maybe his science fiction films, every single one of his films has had a car accident in it.
Either some sort of car accident or some sort of tragedy involving a vehicle.
Yeah.
I'd say women going through tragedy is a common theme throughout every single
That too,
one.
actually.
Yes, holy shit, yeah, that's a good point.
Whether small in scale or whether you're not even a human being, you know.
Pat, what did you think of Maelstrom?
I honestly don't remember the movie at all.
It's tough because I remember it so visually. It's such an overexposed film, and it's kind of mundane. And I share the same thing. I don't remember it.
I remember like the kind of pacing of that movie was more in line with what Denis would go on to do. So in a way, it's almost like this is really the first real Denis movie in a way.
In some ways, yeah.
But it's just, it doesn't really stand out for me.
What about you, Hunter? I don't even know if you've seen this. I don't think we ever talked about this one.
This is a prime example of why I don't drink, because I can barely remember stuff as it is. But the one thing I do remember about this film, which is I think this was the first, it's probably the one I remember the least of his films, but it's the one I remember thinking, even for earlier films like this, how strong the color palette was.
Yeah.
Like I think this was the first time I saw how he used blues and grays that were used throughout it, and more often than not, I think most people want when they see stuff like that, like it has no color in it. It's no, it's how you use color, and this I think definitely showed his eye to the point where I thought, in another life, then he could have also been an incredible cinematographer because he chooses the way he shoots things quite well. But you know, thankfully we have him as a director as well. And again, it's I remember it being emotionally driven. I remember it holding me throughout, even though I don't remember much of it.
Well, I think it's unanimous between the three of us. This is his weakest film, but it's not a bad film by a long stretch.
No, I definitely say that, but even his weakest definitely has strong something visual.
Yeah,
like
I do remember it still being a good movie, but just not a very memorable one.
I didn't understand the whole like talking fish segment that was happening in the film. Like, I don't know if that was just him trying to be
I
artsy for the
forgot
sake of
about
doing that. I mean, I'll never forget that because it's so bizarre.
Yeah.
It has been a while since I've seen it too.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it as like a play, as we all have our own version of an imaginary friend in some sort of way. I thought maybe that's just how he approached it. Maybe that's what he had when he was younger, and he tried to bring that. It's not always clear.
Yeah, it's definitely him definitely trying to find his footing, and for that, I don't know. I give it a solid 7. I don't know. It's definitely the lowest I'm gonna give his films for right now, but yeah, and also with these first two films, they are very hard to track down. So trying
Yeah.
I'm glad I
trying
caught
to
him in time.
rewatch them again is a bit of a headache in and of itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really probably
You have to be a
should've-
Blade Runner to
I
find
probably
it.
should have rewatched this one just to have something to say, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. It's okay. I mean, for now, what, like a 6, a 7, or?
Yeah, for me, it's
Yeah, I give it a 7 question
Yeah.
mark.
for me, it's definitely a 6 at the highest. Like, because it's still definitely not a bad movie, like I said, but the fact that I can't really remember anything about it kind of speaks to just, yeah.
Once we get to 2013, we'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, I would say soon I'll be okay because from here on out I'm pretty much a big fan of his work.
Yeah, and that's the funny
Yeah.
thing is that he took a long hiatus in the 2000s. And even to his own admission, these two first films, August 32nd on Earth and Maelstrom, he doesn't look back on these films with a lot of enthusiasm. He says, I was kind of young, I was kind of arrogant, I was kind of, just trying to make movies for the sake of having an identity instead of just like doing it for the love of cinema. So I think him stepping away and having a bit of a hiatus worked out to its advantage, because I just have to say to everybody, if you are ever going to binge all of his films, a great appetizer to start off with his filmography is watching his short film from 2008, Next Floor.
Oh, I love this one.
Oh,
This to
is
me
great.
is where he found his visual flair. Like, it's like, holy shit. Like, I see some David Fincher in there. I see a little bit of David Lynch-esque. Like, it's very easy to get the symbolism behind the short film of it just being like, the more we feed the upper class, the more they sink down, and we're just like slaving over them. And it's actually kind of comedic, and it's kind of like weird, and the sound design is really good, and there's sort of like this, like, you're looking through their soul, like the people that are serving the upper class, and you just get so transfixed into it. It's really well done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's also something very Lars von Trier about it. If
Oh
you've seen
yeah,
some of
that's a
his
good
films.
comparison actually. Yeah. I mean, for a short film, oh my god!
And
Like,
it's also
it even looks like a very expensive one too.
No, it's okay, and it's also kind of the first indication that he's a fan of a certain book by Frank Herbert, because like the big banquet scene, it's very eerie and gluttonous, and it makes you think of certain characters that he could adapt. It's the first indication that he's a fan of that type of
Yes,
imagery.
it won't be the first time, even in August 32nd on Earth.
No.
It won't be his first time going into the desert. We will get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't rate this. It's a little too hard to kind of rate a short film, but it's more of an honorable mentioning at this point, because he's done short films
I mean-
before, but it's
This is the one that really stands out for a short film.
absolutely.
And I feel like
yeah.
I feel like if you do rate short films, you do have to rate them differently anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. but
I
would rate this very highly if I were to rate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
It's a
it would
high
definitely be
praise
a
for
hi-
me.
Would definitely be a high rating for me as well. I see a lot of short films, and to do something like this in the amount of minuscule time you have, because like shorts are a very rushed production, and for him to do this, wow.
I mean, for the lack of resources, like, even with the budget that he had, it's like he really stood out with it. It's impressive.
That's something he's always said, isn't it? That he always finds ways to like make movies that look like they're a bigger budget than they actually are because he's used to working with lower budgets.
Yeah, and also he puts the focus again just to the intimacy with his characters, even if it's like a backdrop of it being like an epic world. I know we will get to that, but it's definitely a sensibility in his style that does pay off because it's noticeable of what he does. He's not just about the spectacle; he's about the character.
Mm-hmm.
And then we flash forward another year. He did another Canadian film based on a Canadian tragic event that happened in Montreal in 1989, Polytechnique, about the mass shooting that happened at the Polytechnique high school. It was high school, right? Sorry.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was high school.
Was it a high school or was it a college? I can't remember.
I should have fact checked.
I remember it looking. I remember it looking like a high school.
So let me look that up quickly.
Oh, it was a college.
Okay.
It was a post. It was post secondary. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That
yep.
makes sense.
My
'Cause
mistake.
I do remember like him targeting specifically. We'll get into it, I'm sure.
Yeah, like it's about, it's definitely a story that holds up a lot and has things to say about just like mental illness and who you're targeting, because he's targeting women in this story, and it's a very bleak story. It's definitely not a movie you'd be like, I'm gonna sit down one day and watch Polytechnique, like it's definitely a stomach full. It's a very well done depiction of the tragedy, but I think what it's really about is about like just the survival's guilt of a couple of individuals in this movie and how they deal with it. Like it can either go a good way or maybe not so good of a way, like how you deal with that, post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, because this movie has as I recall, because I've seen it a couple of times, it basically has primarily 3 point of views. We've got the shooter, we've got one of the survivors, one of the female survivors, I should say, and a male survivor who basically has that survivor's guilt and suffers through that.
Yeah, they all manage their mental health in a different way.
Exactly. It was very interesting view on all 3 of them. In an interesting way to tackle this story.
It's definitely not an easy watch. It's one of those ones I have only seen once just because of the material, and mental illness is something that, like, I've known people with PTSD, and not someone who's gone through something like this, but I like the fact that a lot of films like this try to avoid the glorification of violence, and sometimes they just fall into that trap. This film doesn't do that, even though it's a black and white, it is 3 perspectives. It really explores the again, another theme of his. It's about the humanity of an event like this that's unfortunately is more common than not these days.
Yeah,
and it's I thought it was a really touching depiction and explorative story on this event, which I hadn't even heard about this particular one before I saw it.
Me too, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
And you know what? It's actually nice to see, like, now that he's kind of come out of this kind of hiatus and he's like, okay, I'm just gonna make a story about something that like my country should probably remember and reflect on, and it's important to remember. So if he set out to really show people a tragedy that maybe not a lot of people have heard about, like us, then he succeeded.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's honorable. It's raw. It's definitely hard to watch, but still it's wonderfully directed. I think the black and white aspect really helps it out with it, and it almost disguises the violence too, like when you see blood like pouring out on the floor, and like it kind of like, I don't know, the fact that it's black and white almost like doesn't want to glorify it too much, hence why it's not in color. Like if you see red, it's too stylish,
Yeah,
it's done in a way where like it doesn't feel like it's desensitizing you, but it's also not glorifying it either. It's finds a nice middle ground there.
Well,
it's not an easy watch, but it's definitely a rewarding one.
Yeah, Denis is all about the middle ground, so this is just him finding his voice. So I think he's really he's starting to come somewhere. Like, you can definitely tell he's establishing himself.
Can we also talk about the language in this movie?
Yes, good point. Yeah, bring this up actually.
So when they were making this movie, Denis basically decided he was hoping that he could get more people outside of Quebec to watch it. He wanted more Canadians to see it. So he actually shot the movie both in French and in English. Like, it wasn't dubbed or anything. They just shot both versions back to back.
Wow.
Yeah, well, on the Blu-ray they have that you can watch either version. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen both versions.
Yeah, me too.
I actually haven't. I just watched their language version.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been a movie that's done that before, where they film the movie twice but do it in two different languages?
I'm sure there has, none come to mind.
Like, I can't think of anything, but I feel like that has been done before, but it's very, very rare.
Okay.
I know of examples of where they shoot different quality of content, which is also something that's shot dime a dozen, where whether a director wants to try and shoot for R or something, but they'll always pull back into a PG cut of it. But as far as language goes, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna say he's the inventor of that, but it's kind of nice, again, going back to his middle ground. It's like he knows that there's people out there that want to actually like see something authentic that did take place in Montreal. So yeah, we're gonna have it be spoken in French. But then he's like, yeah, there's some dummies out there that don't want to read subtitles, so why don't I cater to them and give them an English dub? It's like he's being nicely babyish, you know.
Not
Whatever.
even a dub, funny enough.
Yeah, don't even dub it.
If it was an English dub, I never would have watched the English version, but the fact that it was actually shot in English as well made me go, okay, so it's worth watching both versions then.
And still acted consistently. Like, it's kind of not as distracting if you watch them both, like, say, back to back, because it's actually a pretty short film. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes or less or something like that.
I think it's somewhere around the 90-minute mark.
No, this is I would give it a 9, to be honest. It's really good.
Yeah, I'll be the same, 9.
I will go an 8 personally. That this is the first movie of his that I consider to be a great movie, but I do think his later work will definitely be an improvement.
Well, that takes us to his next film. Oh God. And you want to talk about someone making a name for himself really early? We go to 2010's Incendies. Oh my God.
Oh.
My stomach is already feeling really gross right now.
Anyone got a gravel?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, it's the story of two twins that are trying to dig really deep into their mother's history when she was in the Middle East, and they're trying to find their long-lost relatives, like their father and their supposed brother. I don't want to spoil this for people who haven't seen this movie.
No.
You can't. But all I have to say is that this movie is just something that just nicely reaches into your chest and your heart and just yanks it out.
Yeah. Like, without getting into details, I do want to say the way the reveal is handled is one of my favorite, like, reveals I've seen in any movie.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, don't go into the details too much, but even just sort of like it kind of reminds me of like a Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu movie. How it kind of globetrots, how it kind of like it plays with structure a lot. It plays with like who are we supposed to focus on a lot. And I was surprised to find out that this wasn't based on a book. It was based on a play that Denis happened to just catch one day, and he said, "I see this as a film, and I have to make this." And it feels so nicely inspired. It's a very complex story too. You have to kind of like watch it and memorize everybody's names and know like where you're at in terms of timeline.
Yeah.
But when you do, it's such a rewarding experience of a human drama.
Absolutely.
Oh, so beautiful. That to me, that's the nice part. How you say it nicely takes your heart out. It kind of starts off with that. We go, man, this is beautifully shot. Oh dear, and then things start happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's clear he again it almost feels like a documentary within itself, much like his previous film. There's something very documentary about it, just because it almost feels too real. This film, it's like I'm watching something that should be shown on the news.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I agree. Yeah.
It's funny. Speaking of it's funny that you mentioned that it gives you a documentary feel, because before even August 32nd on Earth, he did do some documentary shorts back then.
Oh, a really good one. I think his very first thing, or at least one of his first credited things, was Rewind Forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw that one before August 32nd.
Yeah, I was happy they did that, like a little Denis marathon right before 2049 came out at the Lightbox. That was really nice.
Yeah, I wasn't invited.
You were too excited for 2049.
I was.
You didn't want to see anything.
We'll get there. And also, probably not his first, but kind of our first visual sense that he loves the desert.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Because I think people are almost kind of afraid to show the beauty of the Middle East, given the subject matter over a couple of years. But the Middle East is beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, there are very few directors I think who are bold enough to show the beauty of other landscapes. Like Ridley Scott is the only other one I know of who will shoot the Middle East as beautiful as it is, like Kingdom of Heaven. At least I believe it was the Middle East. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that. But no, he's not afraid to tap into the brutality and the beauty of any subject matter, and he does both here.
We also have another vehicle tragedy with the bus scene.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, the bus scene. That's like one of the more striking images and moments of the movie. Just where you're sort of like, I don't know if I side with this mother or not. It's like a very like good and evil complex mortality in this movie, and that's one of the moments that you see it in her eyes. Oh my god, this is a 10. This is an excellent fucking movie.
This is 10.
I love this movie. This is one of my favorites by him.
I'm in complete agreement with you guys. This is my first 10 for Denis.
I mean, it was nominated for the Best Foreign Film, but that was the only Academy Award that it got. It just only got a nomination.
Boo.
But he's getting there. We'll see some nods soon.
Yeah.
He'll get his win eventually.
Hopefully this spring or in the new year. We'll see. But we'll get to that.
He deserves it, but we'll get there.
I need some good news.
Maybe I'll actually tune in on the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
For the first time in like a few years, actually.
Yeah.
And Best Picture goes to Spider-Man. Turn it off.
Oh yes, everybody. Hunter really wants everyone to know he's excited for the Batman, and that he doesn't give a shit about Spider-Man: No Way Home. He really wants people to know.
Well, I'm a fan of filmmakers who are excited about telling a story, not making a buck, and member berries.
You remember?
That's fair.
Remember?
Moving on. That's another podcast entirely.
A rant podcast. Yes.
Clear 6 hours.
We flash forward to 2013 with 2 back-to-back films that officially put him on the map. Now,
that's right. They're the same year.
Now, Pat and I kind of go back and forth on which one. It's like, because here's the thing with Denny is that you see an escalation in scale and his whole filmography. Like each film feels like it's getting better and better up until his most recent film, obviously, is like a peak. So let's just start off with talking about Enemy. I know that it got like a lot, it got pushed around a lot because of like, festivals and like, all that stuff. Like technically they were both the same year, but people didn't know what it was more until 2014, but it's still credited as a 2013 film. But seeing the course of like the escalation of scale and him building and building, like it feels fitting for us to talk about Enemy first before the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from my research, it sounds like Enemy was actually shot before Prisoners.
Yes,
so
yes,
I feel like this is the best one to go for.
It's another good point. Yes, it was also shot. It was shot in 2012 in like the spring or summertime, and then the next film, whatever, Prisoners, was just shot like early 2013 and didn't come out until later on. So it makes sense. Yes, Enemy. So this is a abstract movie. You kind of have to be in the right mindset to watch it. It's about a man who becomes obsessed with trying to find his doppelganger that he noticed is someone who appears in a few films that he rented. And when he does track down this actor, it goes way deep into his, not his psyche, but I'll say his what's the word? I have the word. His
I mean, his psyche is definitely a big part of it.
His insecurities, that's the word I was looking for.
His insecurities, his fear of commitment.
Yes. I mean, you want to talk about his love for like David Lynch and Kubrick is really starting to show in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which if you're Jake Gyllenhaal, I don't know what you have to be insecure about. But again, Denny makes you believe. He makes you believe.
Yeah, this was, as I said earlier, this was my introduction to Denis, and I thought this was a great intro to him. Like, this is just a movie that's right up my alley, so it was just...
Me too.
Yeah.
A story you can connect with, but there's still like a lot of like abstract stuff that you're required to sort of think about it and get your own interpretation out of it. Like it's
requires a lot of
balance.
picking apart to figure things out, but even without that, you can still get a basic story to follow if you're not thinking about it too much.
A moron like me, I definitely got caught up into it. And I love the look of it. It's a perfect film that you can give full attention to, or just have it going on in the background, because again, the color of it is so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Yeah,
and there are some images.
Doesn't he film our
For
city
me,
of Toronto so beautifully?
Because I was gonna say, this is a movie where, like, I always love how ugly this movie is. Like, there's kind of a beautiful ugliness to it.
Yeah.
Ugly can be beautiful. I don't know why people don't understand that. That's what I tell myself in the mirror every day, you know.
But, yeah, on Cody's part as well, like, it is so really cool to see Toronto in a movie like this.
Yeah. There's definitely some images in this that will stick with me forever. There's one in particular that both fascinated and terrified me. For any of you who knows my deepest fears, oh my God.
Do you have arachnophobia, Hunter?
It's to me they're a bit like most reality show stars, where it's like I'm not so much afraid of them, I just don't want to be anywhere near them.
It's also a very spacey film. Like, there's a lot of headspace in the shots. There's a lot of like really capturing his loneliness and his sort of like desperation to try to find commitment and try to come to terms with that. And it has like also it has like a few shots in here that are just so creepy that, again, it like you said, Hunter, it'll just stick with you. It sticks with me for the rest of my life.
I remember back when I was in film school, I remember we had to do an essay analyzing like any Canadian film. So I chose this one because this movie just has a lot to say and a lot to interpret out of it.
That's a good choice.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Hunter, Pat, why don't you tell the Queen Street video story?
I was hoping we would get to this.
We don't know this story.
Okay, so you remember in the movie how he goes to the video store to rent the movies that star Jake Gyllenhaal, like the doppelganger?
Yeah.
So we found that same video store. So I decided, while I was with Cody, I went into the video store and I went up to the counter and I asked them if they had... I just said the name of the movie that Jake Gyllenhaal said. So I'm just like, hey, do you have If There's a Will, There's a Way? And they actually started checking because they didn't understand my reference.
Yeah.
It would have been so cool.
Yeah,
I was hoping that the clerk would pick up on it. God damn it.
I was really hoping they would get it.
Maybe it was probably someone else different who worked there. It doesn't even work there anymore.
Yeah. I think I actually, before I started working at the movie theaters, I actually had applied to that same video store, but...
Very cool.
Yeah, clearly that wouldn't have worked out.
I think Bay Street Video is the only video store that's around in Toronto where you can actually rent stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I miss video rental. I hate browsing through streaming and being like, oh, I guess I'll watch that. Nah, I'll keep scrolling.
Yeah, for all you kids listening, you should do your homework and go to bed. But by the way, when you had to rent stuff, you had to actually go into a store and rent physical copies. This is before Netflix. Just so you know, that's the trial and horrors we had to go through, and we miss it.
It was good to have, like, having to actually commit to a movie, you know? Because with Netflix and stuff, you just have way too much to choose from, and then if you can just turn it off easy, where if you spent money to rent something, you feel like you have to finish it, so you'll actually get the full experience.
Yeah. There's almost like an urgency feel to going to the video store, and you can even just browsing around and that experience and trying to get out. And yeah, bring them back. # bring them back.
I'd love to have video stores again.
I'm bringing rentals back. Anyway.
And if they do bring them back, then the first movie I'd rent is a Denis movie. That'd be good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So with Enemy, I would give it a 9. I think this is a really strong movie. Again, you have to be sort of in the right mindset. And even when you get the point of the film, there's other ways you can probably interpret it in your own way that's still fitting, that's still fine. But if you're not in the right mindset, it might not click with you as much. So just kind of tread lightly with that one.
I'll give it an 8. It's really strong, but he released something later this year that I felt was much better.
That's fair, and I'm going to agree with Cody and give it a 9, simply because this is just the type of movie that I'm frequently into, and I think he does it really well, but he does have movies that I would say are much better still.
Yeah. I mean, look, if an 8 is the worst thing I can give a movie that's like abstract to begin with, then you're doing an incredible job.
Yeah.
So I remember around this time he was on some radio show. I forget what it was. I've seen like a lot of interviews with him. Obviously, I mean, I love this man. I love to hear his philosophy. And this guy asked him. So it was around TIFF of 2013, and he's like, "Wow, you have 2 films here that are released at the exact same time. Like, I mean, like how do you do that? And like, you know, one's an independent film and one's your first Hollywood movie. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, what are the differences?" And he just kind of went, I just love cinema, and I'm just like so fortunate to love cinema. I don't care if it's like a small or big film. I just love movies. Like, I'm just like, I fucking love this man. Like, this is just so like casual and just so like just honest and just very like not taken so seriously. I love this. It's a great segue from his independent routes leading all the way to his first Hollywood film in 2013, the crime drama Prisoners. Yeah. Now this is fantastic whodunit. It's all about Hugh Jackman plays a man who's a religious, moral centered guy, and on the night of during the day of Thanksgiving, his daughter as well as the neighbor's daughter goes missing, and Jake Gyllenhaal also he comes back and he plays the detective trying to find these 2 girls. And when there's not that many leads during the investigation, Hugh Jackman takes matters into his own hands on who he suspects stole these girls. Ooh. So what's so great about this film, I'll definitely pass it to you guys, but I just have very simple thoughts about it, is that I think this film is fantastic for any different viewings that you have. You can watch it the first time as like a great crime drama, like a whodunit, like that was good. And then you watch it again, and it's like this morally complex, layered film that I'm like, wow, I didn't pick up on all this symbolism, all this great stuff that you just, like, it would just fly by you. And it just keeps, and then by the third time, when you know, like, all the layers, it's just another different experience altogether. It's fantastic. Hunter, what did you think of this movie?
This was actually a film I didn't end up seeing in the theaters, and God, I wish I did.
Yeah, I wish I would have saw this too.
This to me, I think for its genre is some of the best showcases of acting I've ever seen from some of the stars we have today. Whether it's Jake Gyllenhaal, Hugh Jackman, Paul Dano. This is a film that really made me fall in love with Paul Dano and how incredible of an actor he is. But everybody, even Terrence Howard, is incredible in this. Like, Denny is a true actor's director. He knows how to shoot grief. He knows how to illustrate such a tone without it being hammered over your head, even though hammers are definitely used in this movie.
Oh God.
But to me, this is like the perfect kind of rainy day movie. You know, you don't have much else to do. It's definitely a perfect afternoon watch because every time I watch it, I get more and more out of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very rewatch. It's a rarity for a film like this to have rewatchability factor. And oh my God, this is I think. Of all the actors in this, I imagine there are several scenes in this they use on their demo reel even today because it's such a powerhouse film. You're just exhausted by the end.
That sink scene with Hugh
my
Jackman.
God.
I mean, that sink scene with Hugh Jackman with the hammer. I mean, there's something about
and you feel
there's
it.
a few parts in Denny's films where I'm like, the yelling is so like it almost feels like it's on mic audio because it feels so.
Yeah.
Like around you, like in front of
Intimate.
you. It's like it feels like he's yelling at me, like I'm in the room. It's just it so
doesn't
powerful.
feel like movie yelling. It feels like you're there with them.
Oh, it's excellent.
No, and like and every part of like when someone has to be intense, like more often than not, most of the time when people yell in a movie, it's kind of unintentionally funny and never earned. You know, I create life. No, every time the yelling is done in here. Every time it's done in here, it's so you understand, even if you don't agree with his methods. You know, for any of you who are parents out there, I'm not. I can't imagine the horrific thought of possibly losing, your own child and being more often than not blamed for it and doing everything you can to try and get them back.
Yeah.
It's a film that stabs you in the heart and you thank it and you thank the dagger for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, speaking of the performances in general, actually, I do want to specifically mention Jake Gyllenhaal because his performance as the detective is probably the most realistic performance as a cop I've ever seen in any movie ever. As someone who actually knows a bunch of cops, my sister's a cop, her husband's a cop. Jake Gyllenhaal is very on point with how cops tend to be. Everything, and even his little mannerisms, his constant blinking, the way he blinks, it's like he constantly has a migraine.
Just the next time the next time you watch this movie, count how many times he does blink. I want to know the exact number.
Because he has such a noticeable blink in that movie. It looks painful.
It's subtle. It's very subtle.
Mm-hmm.
A great 1-2 punch with Denny Jake had that year.
Oh, yeah. Also, I wanted to mention, mystery movies tend not to be my thing. I like crime movies, but mysteries not as often. But this one is different because of what it actually goes to, thematically and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a case where even knowing the answers, going back and rewatching it makes it better actually knowing now. Where most mystery movies, it's okay, I know now. That's about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it also is the first film, at least to my knowledge, maybe I'm wrong, if someone wants to correct me, it's fine. There's an actor by the name of David Dastmalchian who's in this, and who I think has been in Denny's movies, apart from Sicario, ever since. And he's a very small part, but he's great in this.
And spoilers, but he always dies in every single one of his movies.
I never remember this actor's name. I'm assuming he's the one that went on to work with James Gunn recently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. He has a very recognizable face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He plays
I've always just seen him as that guy who's always in the Denis movies.
The maze illustrator, that's what I'll call him.
Yes.
It's funny that when you said you're not into mystery movies, Pat, but I find that's actually a growing theme with Denis films, is that there's always an investigation. Like in Incendies, the Incendies, there's the siblings are trying to find, they're investigating on their mother's history essentially, and
Yeah.
with, you know, even like his next two films, like there's obviously, or his next three films, there's always just like this investigation going on with that's centered around the character that gets the audience more engaged.
You know, I think it might just be
Yeah.
the way he does mystery, because he does it differently than most storytellers do. Because most storytellers, it's just about getting to the answer, and that's about it. So when you have the answer, there we go. Like, there's nothing else to it. But with Denis, there's always nice subversions and stuff like that. Like, I just... That always make it, when you go back and revisit it, you're getting a completely different experience when you know things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is another 10 for me.
10.
Yeah, another 10 for me, too.
The real mystery
This is an excellent movie.
Yeah. The real mysteries, Pat, are the hammers we used along the way.
Poor Paul Dano's face.
Oh, can I say my favorite shot in this movie, actually?
Yeah.
Speaking of Paul Dano,
Yeah.
it is that shot of him in the shower after it's been locked up, and you just see, like, the light coming through the hole.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the peephole. Yeah.
Yeah, I just love that image so much.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice. It's nice that Paul Dano's able to take a break and not being beat up anymore. Oh, sorry, he's in Batman.
All right, it's been 10 minutes. You haven't reminded us that you're excited for Batman.
Yeah, I'm excited for Batman. I'm really excited for Batman.
He's gonna get his ass kicked for sure.
By the way, Batman's the only hero that Denis likes. So
Oh, really?
that is.
I hadn't heard that.
Denis doing a Batman movie? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Don't.
Oh, I would kill for that.
Yeah, don't at me, comic book fans. It's fine.
All right, then we flash forward a
I know
couple
what's
years
next.
later. We're taking another step into his, I guess, escalation in his budgets, because we go to a drug cartel action thriller. Well,
Yeah.
more of a subdued action thriller, I'll say, with
Yeah.
Sicario.
You say subdued. I just say it's not a high octane type. I definitely feel
Yeah.
the intensity, but it's very much about the intellect behind a lot of it.
Yeah, like it's Emily Blunt. She's an FBI agent who joins this task force to take down the drug cartels at the borders of Mexico. And let's just say, you should definitely read more into a new job before getting hired on, because it might not be what you expect. That's the lesson of the movie. You might find some things where you're like, oh shit, I have to do this. I didn't see that in the description.
Without getting into details, I actually do love Emily Blunt's character arc in this movie, because it's the opposite of what you would typically expect in a movie.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think we single-handedly have to thank Denis for making Benicio del Toro cool again.
Yeah.
Because my God, his character in this. Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of Traffic when I
but
saw this movie the first time.
Yes! Great comparison.
I actually hadn't seen Traffic at the time that I saw this. I ended up checking it out later, so I got the comparisons when I watched Traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly a film that tugs at your moral compass, and you have to sort of suppress that when you get into this new world, because it really does feel like, I mean, we're definitely going to be talking about this more with his latest film, but like when you have like a character that is just brought into a new world and they're just sort of discovering something entirely new all around them, it's a great observatory as well. Like, we're really put into Emily Blunt's perspective really nicely.
Yeah.
The biggest problem with this movie is the script. And Pat and I joke about this all the time, where this movie was written by Taylor Sheridan, who has done some exceptionally, like, you know, admirable work in the past, where I can respect, like, his sort of writing style, but his writing style comes off like you're joining in for the very first time the third season of a show that you haven't even seen before.
I can understand that, yeah.
Yeah,
like they're sort of like they're sort of
what it is,
like Yeah, well, I was just going to elaborate what I mean by that. Like, is that
Yeah.
it feels like
Yeah.
he understands his world building a little bit more than us, the viewer, and he's sort of just allowing us to go along with it. Where it's like I'm a bit lost. It's a bit hazy, the details and the, I don't know.
For me, I'm not exactly sure what it is. Like, the best thing about this movie is the acting and Denis' direction, hands down.
Yeah.
All that
Absolutely.
is on point. Because I remember when I first saw this movie, I thought, I want to love you, but I couldn't figure out what it was that was bothering me. Because I couldn't figure out what was like wrong. I'm like, not even. I'm looking at the script and I'm like, it's not that the script is bad, because like there's a lot of stuff it does that I really like. Like, I love all the characters. I love how they're written and what it's going for. I love its themes, but I think I realized it wasn't until after I saw Taylor Sheridan's other movies, Hell or High Water and Wind River, that I realized I'm just not a fan of his writing style.
I like Hell or High Water, but I do understand where you're coming from. It does feel like a big kind of event television episode in the way it's kind of
Yeah.
written.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Yep.
this also, in the same way that Enemy had images that will stick with me forever, there are things in Sicario that will stick with me forever. My favorite part about this movie is that whole city drive-through scene where not a word is said.
Oh yeah.
When
It's
they're
just
going
the
through
things you
Juarez,
see.
yeah.
Yeah, when they go through Juarez, that entire sequence, just wow, that stood me still. That entire sequence, right up to till the end of that really short firefight, which is how most firefights are, from what I've read.
Yeah.
And man, do you feel it? Man,
And
do you
we'd
feel
be
the
fools.
intensity.
We'd be fools if we haven't brought up, because he's only worked with this individual 3 times, but cinematographer Roger Deakins.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually wanted to mention that as well, because this movie, the way night scenes are shot, I never see movies that shoot night scenes as like perfectly as this.
Yeah.
Like the darkness actually feels dark, like you can't actually see in there, but you see what you need to see still, because they find creative uses of where light sources will be.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's some, like, whether it's like on their suits, like little lights, or maybe there is like an actual natural light coming from like a trench, like that they're going into. Like it's very wonderfully done in terms of its lighting.
Mm-hmm.
Even the sunsets too. Oh my god! Just as the sun's going down.
Yeah. I always think of that scene where they're toward the end, where they're heading into the tunnels, and like the sun is setting. Oh, like the visuals there.
I think that was.
Absolutely
I
gorgeous.
think that image was so strong it became one of the posters at one point. One of the international
Probably.
ones, anyway.
I wouldn't
did-
be surprised.
I didn't see the sequel because Denny wasn't involved, but that's the quickest review.
Yeah.
I
It's
can do.
okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Like
It's-
I haven't seen it either. I know Benicio came back and Taylor Sheridan wrote it again, but that's not much of a Taylor Sheridan fan. Not that he's bad, just not for me.
Without a Tyler Sheridan script and without Denny's direction, you do it's like Simon Pegg and Nick Frost doing a comedy without Edgar Wright. You really feel the absence.
Huh, that's a good
Yeah.
comparison,
You really-
actually. Yeah.
You really do feel it. But
I can understand if people
No,
love
I'd
the
say-
character. I was just gonna say I can understand if characters love people love the characters of Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin because they are in the sequel,
Sure.
and if they are kind of a standout, and I can see that Taylor Sheridan probably thought to himself, hey, actually, there's some interesting depth with these characters. I'll make a movie just about them and them going more into the world and their backstory with their family, because it was implied
Yeah.
about Benicio del Toro's family that was done beautifully in that house invasion scene near the end.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my god.
that
That's the best part of the movie.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
I wasn't a big fan of their interior decoration, if you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah.
You know, a furniture man myself. No, and again, it's refreshing also to see a story. I don't know how if you guys took this away from me, but more often than not, when you have a story about a hitman or any kind of assassin, they generally more often than not are kind of they kind of drop that facade by the end. They're they're good people. No, not this guy.
No.
Right up to the point that the real last scene with him when he confronts somebody, and you see what he's willing to do, that floored me.
Can I actually mention my favorite scene from this movie? Actually,
Yes.
It's actually the ending scene, but it's not really a spoiler because of how the scene is used. The last scene is the kids in Mexico and Juarez playing like soccer. And then you start hearing gunshots and all that shit going on in the background. They stop and look, and then they just keep playing soccer because this is just part of the norm there.
Yeah.
I thought that was just a really powerful final moment for that movie.
Count your blessings.
Yeah. Even just Emily Blunt's decision on not going, like, basically signing this non-disclosure agreement, just it's like there's so many great moments. There's so many great moments in the film. And it's very well directed. I love the way it looks, and every time I do watch it, I do appreciate it more and more. I'm not really annoyed by the script details that I've went into, where I'm not really into the subject matter. So,
because I love this subject matter. I do think there's something about. It might be how Taylor Sheridan paces things. That might be what bothers me.
Yeah. But for that, I still would give it a solid 8. I mean, I back then, if you'd ask me, I'd probably give it a little lower, maybe even a 7, to be honest. But I've grown to appreciate it a little bit more. So I think a solid 8. It's a solid movie. It's not bad.
I find myself coming back to it at least once a year. So I'll definitely give it a solid 8 myself.
Okay. Wow, it's funny because like. It sounds like I actually slightly like it more than you guys. I actually think I'd probably give it a 9, the same as Enemy. I have my criticisms of it, but like everything else is so good that maybe if I didn't have these issues with Taylor Sheridan's writing style, it probably would be one of my favorites from Denis.
Yeah. Hey, do you guys like sci-fi?
I do.
Whoa. What about you, Hunter? Do you like sci-fi?
Yeah, I like a good sci-fi, and Denny's one of the reasons why I can say I'm a fan of it again.
Like, I remember there was an interview with him when he was promoting Incendies, going all the way back, like the posters right next to him, and one of the guys were asking him, like, so let me get this straight, you've always wanted to make a sci-fi film? And he said, oh, I would love to do a sci-fi film. I've always wanted to do that. And I watched that going, wow, yes. Dreams do come true.
There is hope.
Their dreams come true. That's amazing.
Yeah. Neil Blomkamp went away and we all thought, that boy is our last hope. No, there is another.
No, there is a Denis. and he's Canadian as well. No, there is a Canadian.
All right.
So in 2016, I mentioned before, this is the film where I officially said I love this man because he made a science fiction film that I've always wanted to see, or if I haven't seen it yet, then I sure hell would love to make one just so I can say I saw it. And that is 2016's Arrival. Oh, what an excellent little movie.
Beautiful.
Definitely his most accessible film. It's either this or Prisoners, I would say. Like anybody could watch this. I'd recommend this to anybody. And if you want to know who Denis is, it's either Arrival or Prisoners. Arrival is all about Amy Adams plays this linguistic teacher who's brought in by the military and the government to figure out why these alien craft ships have landed. Well, they haven't really landed. They're just sort of like floating there, like 100 feet up in the air, and they're just sort of like propped there. And it's all about trying to figure out why they are there. Why are you here on Earth? Oh my God. When Veronica and I saw this at TIFF, like we both loved it for like equally different reasons. I was just more caught up in the eeriness, the kind of sentimentality behind the film that wasn't so schmaltzy and all like kind of too much. It was so subdued and just nicely emotional, and it got me into the kind of like his bleakness was there. Like I know Denis' bleakness has always been like a reoccurring thing, but it was also so like undersaturated and very like natural and kind of thematic towards what the film was about. And then she was just like, Veronica said like Arrival is like one of her favorite films of all time. Like it's in her like top 3 probably. She just loved like the way that it plays with time was just a standout for her, and as well with mine. Like this ending, without spoiling it, just completely like made me go, holy shit, you can look at movies that way? Like, you can tell a story that way? I just been watching it, like, how did you fool me this much? Like, this is insane. And yeah, it's just I love it. I love it so much. Pat, what did you think? I can't. I'm sorry. I'm gushing too much now. Now I'm starting to
no, we're all gonna be doing
passionate.
that before it's over.
My passion is starting to kind of go into overdrive. So I need you guys to take it away. Pat, what did you think of Arrival?
This is kind of hard for me to come off of you because I have not seen this since the theater.
Oh.
It has been such
Really?
it has been such a long time since I actually saw this movie. I remember it being great, but I honestly don't remember a lot of the details. I should have rewatched this before, but I just haven't had the time lately.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, so I don't really have too much to say. I'm actually kind of working off of what you guys are saying to remember details right now.
That's okay. That's all right.
Oh, okay. Well, screw you then. I'll talk. No, this
Yeah,
film,
Pat, go watch Independence Day. Be gone.
Yeah. Enjoy your resurgence, Hack Snyder. I don't know. No, this is actually a film I only saw quick TV spots of. I didn't see a full trailer, so I wasn't sure what to expect going into this. I was afraid, like, okay, is this like you get an art house director, you give him a big budget, he's just gonna do a big biff bang boom explosion? No, this is a type of sci-fi film, particularly with this type of story you don't get very often, which is usually the first communication is they're sending a signal, it's a decipher, it means they want to kill us. No, this is all about how we communicate with one another and even to each other. And I think this might be Amy Adams' best movie.
It is,
as well as Jeremy Renner, who I think he's an actor you can pass off, but no, he's incredible in this, and I think it's nice to see a film like this that takes this content seriously and makes it accessible from an intellectual standpoint. You know, you have her. She's I think she's a college professor, and she's brought in to basically help decipher what these ships are.
Yeah.
And what might be in them, and then it is a slow burn, but again, like all of Denis' films, it's a rewarding slow burn, and exactly. Anytime there's like a kind of, not necessarily a montage, but like I'm always a sucker for a film where something has to be learned and we see every step of it, and even the way the aliens signal and all their symbols, I just thought was so unique and so beautiful.
Veronica always says they're speaking coffee stains on the rim of a cup when you put it on a table.
Oh, well, I speak the language every morning then. Wow.
They're saying, fuck off, Hunter. Go away.
They need to talk to us. I'll put on a white shirt. It's fine.
Just stain your name.
Yeah, and can I also say, I won't spoil it, of course, but the last moment in this film.
Oh yeah.
I didn't full on cry, but I had tears. I thought that is it's so heartbreaking, but at the same time weirdly uplifting.
So hopeful. So hopeful, so uplifting. Yeah.
And it just threw me to a curve because you weren't.
It makes people leave the theater and ask questions, not just
I
sit down and watch the movie, I shove popcorn in my mouth, and then I leave the movie and forget about it a day later. Yeah. Like this movie lingers on you, the themes and the.
Who's in the post-credit theme?
Yeah, we need to stick around for the post-credit theme. We need to see if the aliens come back again. We need a sequel. We need a prequel to find out how they built the ship.
Yeah.
And also just the methodical tone of this film is what really I think that's what really stands out to me. That's what touches me the most, is that there's like this eeriness, like atmosphere behind it. Like there's like there's like, it really does remind me of a Fincher film where there's like this tension growing in almost every scene. Even if something doesn't necessarily happen, it just keeps your interest by like this like ambient kind of like adrenaline tone where you're kind of just like, the moment that I realized I love this man is actually when they first like arrive to the area in that field by the helicopter, and it's Amy Adams' first look at what the ships are, and there's like that music, the I just remember staring at the screen just with my eyes open and my mouth like open so wide, like I am transfixed. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And that moment that I had,
remember that.
And that's the one thing you remember. Yeah, there you go. There's like
that's one of the
images
things I
you
do remember. There's yeah, I remember images and themes and emotions I had with it. I just don't remember details.
You have homework, Pat.
I do.
It gets a 10. This is one of my favorite sci-fi films in my top 5. I would say. Oh my god.
I mean, the rest of the ranking is going to be really easy at this point. 10.
Yeah, just.
I should probably abstain because I need to revisit it. Like, I have seen it, I do remember it being great, but if I were to rate it now, I am certain it would change upon a revisit, so I should probably abstain from this one.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll go ahead and rank it for you. 10.
Change his vote. This whole thing is rigged.
Anyway.
And then, at that point, I think all of us were pretty much like, we'll watch anything this man does. So yeah, when he's brought...
What's he gonna do next?
He does a sequel! No! No! But in this current landscape of endless sequels and reboots and late prequels and all this bullshit, he's tackling a Ridley Scott film from 1982. Yeah, I was trying to think. 1982. Blade Runner.
Yes.
He comes out with Blade Runner 2049, which is a continuation, not kind of definitely connected to the events that happened in the first Blade Runner, but like it's 30 years down the road. It's in the same universe, and we follow a new detective. I can't really say a lot of that, but he's investigating to try to find the previous Blade Runner to figure out some things. That's the expectations you have to go into this movie, because the movie nicely reveals itself so nicely. Isn't it nice to go into a movie and discover it and not have the trailer to give it all away? Like,
yeah, the trailers don't spoil anything.
It doesn't. That's what's so beautiful about it. It was so, I mean, the marketing was sort of a working thing for us, but it's sort of an unfortunate thing because it didn't do well in the box office because people didn't know what the hell it was about, and Blade Runner is also it's a niche thing. It's a very niche, it's like
sometimes life just steps on you.
That 2 hours and 45 minutes. I mean, you guys were right there with me. I forgot I was watching a film.
We all saw this together.
I forgot I was watching a film for that time.
Yeah.
I felt like I was there. I had like post depression after seeing this movie. I'm like, did I just see one of the greatest
I remember that.
Did I just see like one of the greatest things I've ever seen, because this is such a masterfully done movie on every single aspect of filmmaking technically.
Absolutely.
Like,
it really is.
It is such a gorgeous looking film with its variety and its color palette, its sound design. Like, you know that THX 1138 or no, the THX Lucasfilm intro where it's like I just feel like it was that times 10 so much. I'm just like, immerse me, please. Give me more. And at the same time, deliver such a nice, simple investigation story. Like, that's what was so nice about it too. It was just, and to compare it to the first film, like, it was kind of hazy about like whether this was an investigation. Like, things kind of just got dropped into Harrison Ford or Rick Deckard's lap. And in this one, Detective K, he's actually like piecing things together. He's he's investigating. He's a detective. So that was also very engaging about it.
No, it was my most anticipated film of that year, and like you, I was transfixed that entire cinematic experience. I mean, it's I mean, first off, you know it's sci-fi because handsome Ryan Gosling is having a lot of problems throughout the movie, so you know it's a complete sci-fi.
Anytime there's a movie with Ryan Gosling staring, I'm in.
No, yeah, I mean, listen.
Especially with an electronic score behind it.
Oh.
I mean, listen to any of our female listeners listening. Sorry, first and foremost, and I mean, you can all agree he is dreamy. But this did what a sequel should do. It wasn't all right, let's make an action franchise. This wasn't a franchise starter. This was another tale told in this world that had progressed within that time. This was, I'm just going to say it, this is a better film than the original.
It is. I'm not ashamed to admit it. It's another,
no, I'm not ashamed to admit it either.
It's another one of these situations where it's like, do you like Terminator or Terminator 2? Do you like Alien or Aliens or The Godfather Part 2 or the first one? Like, do you like Empire? Do you like the original Star Wars? Like, it's very like it stands on its own high terms.
Yeah, and like any one of those.
I would say that this is like it is definitely up to personal preference because I know some people who do prefer the original Blade Runner over this one, but I am in your camp as well of preferring 2049.
Yeah.
Like Roger
I believe it's a film that
like
he finally won the Oscar for this.
Finally, he deserves it.
He did, yes.
If he didn't win this, then there's no way he can win anything. This guy's been around since like the Coen Brothers era of like not winning awards, like he should have. Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Man, what a tremendous film. And right up to the last part where you hear tears and rain.
Oh
again.
yeah.
Oh, so beautiful.
It's Hans Zimmer,
so beautiful.
it's Hans Zimmer trying to like emulate the sort of like feeling of watching the first Blade Runner by using his same like different motifs, but like the only motif he does use at the end was the tears in the rain, which was very fitting, obviously.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I will say, also one of Harrison Ford's best performances as of late.
Out of all of his,
when he doesn't,
out of all of his iconic roles that he comes back to do, like if it's like Indiana Jones, Han Solo, there's something so great about Rick Deckard that like just seeing like a torn. It kind of reminded me actually of Sarah Connor in T2, where you have like this this hero that's sort of like torn away from his child, and he's just kind of cynical and crazy, and he needs to try to find like that closure. Like it reminded me exactly like Sarah Connor in T2.
Oh wow, I never thought about that, but that's actually a good comparison.
No, it's definitely one of the rare instances where we have a sequel that's arguably better in every aspect than the original.
It explores more themes that they didn't really go into in the first one. There's like even just like the underground like society of this uprising of replicants, which kind of reminded me of Detroit being human, but it still was like and it still reminded me of it was an interesting, cool aspect that had never been like explored, and like going off world, well not really off world, but very like finding like the farmlands and like just like how things have just not like progressed inside the city. It's still very rainy and dark, and like there's even consumerism that's also being like woven in there too, and like
it's also
I was actually gonna say though, it was, speaking of what you were saying, it is nice to actually see outside of the city in this movie.
Yes.
Like seeing the farmlands or the Vegas area and what happened there. It was a lot more visual variety than the original.
I'd totally hang out at this Vegas. That's a cool looking Vegas.
It really is.
Yeah, no, I quite liked it, but also
radiation without the radiation though.
Without the radiation, without the radiation, of course. I'm quite happy with my skin, but it's also another instance with Denis, which I think is a hand, and yes, even the next one I think is something I rarely see in sci-fi. It's a tangible, believable sci-fi.
Yeah.
There's not one time where I don't believe this, where I go, well, that could never happen. No. As far as a lot of this stuff, this is the detailed way it's handled, the way it's shot, the way he does exposition organically. I believe every aspect of the sci-fi worlds he builds or adapts.
Well, I can't wait to own a Joy.
Oh man.
Who needs Veronica? I want a Joy. I hope she didn't hear that.
Hey, tech guys. Hey, Elon Musk, step it up.
Could we also talk about the elephant in the room? of the whole Deckard replicant theory and how this movie handles it?
They handled it so nicely.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, Mr. Deckard, was it love or was it programming when you first met Rachel? And all he says is, I know what's real. You're like, perfect. Love it.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love how, like, it doesn't give an answer, but it leaves little hints in both directions, so both fandoms can be pleased, basically.
And that's
Yeah.
Denis'
You can view it
style.
either way.
You're in the middle. He finds that middle ground. I love this man.
That middle ground is so hard to find, and somehow he always finds it.
And
Masterpiece.
that seawall
Yeah.
scene at the end, just the score and that intensity. I had no idea. I had no idea where this movie was going to go in terms of the character's decision, and just where you're at in terms of this like grand giant wall that's keeping all this water rushing in. It's exploring new areas, and like the Hans Zimmer just like, oh my god, blow my ears out score. I
also want
I don't know if anyone here or even
the Joy advertisement scene, like the visuals on that.
Oh, I enjoyed those too.
Oh.
I just love the neon of that and how that's lighting the scene as well.
Yeah.
It's just something about
It's. I mean, it's so rare to see cyberpunk type stuff done well, and it's such a joy to see it done in that kind of love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also,
10,
speaking of Joy,
and,
10,
sorry,
10,
speaking of
10.
Yeah, 10.
Speaking of Joy, I just want to say, like, it has one of the best sex scenes I've ever seen in a movie.
Actually, yes, it was beautifully and tastefully done.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing gratuitous about it. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
And you want to show a scene that will literally just you can literally I'll show you proof. Like, you can put a camera behind the back of my neck and watch the hair stand up. All you need to do is show me that furnace scene where he finds the little wooden horse, and you'll just start to see all the hair raise everywhere. Oh my god. I'm not kidding.
I don't know if any of our listeners or if anyone here does yoga or I recently just started meditating recently. If you meditate to the score with this, it's a transwarpian experience.
I
Guys,
can picture that actually working.
I'm taking a hot take on this,
Yeah.
guys. This is my favorite Denis movie.
Yep.
I'm actually in the same camp as you. This is my personal favorite from him too.
I want to say it. I want to say it's my
Well,
favorite.
that
but
takes us to the most anticipated movie I think of the past few years. Because let's just get into it, guys. Like, Frank. Okay, first of all, we all give it a 10, right? Blade Runner 2049.
10.
10.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we have this novel done by Frank Herbert in the 1960s that inspired a lot of things.
Oh boy.
Like cosmic battles, or what was it called? Oh, Star Wars. Sorry, I Star Wars. Sorry, not cosmic battles. I forgot what it was called.
Yeah.
It's a thing that's not really known that much. I just had to okay.
It's a film series of 9 movies that has one good movie.
Right, yeah. It's a franchise that's all been holding on by one little twist of a father twist. That's all it's about. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
We got Denny as a 13-year-old boy reading this one science fiction book by Frank Herbert, and he said, I've always wanted to make this. I have visuals in my head. I'm going to bring this to life one day. And he did, because here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We enter in Dune.
Part 1.
Part 1! Yes, there we go. So, my God, where do we begin? So we got, oh my God.
Thank God for that part 1, by the way. Thank God for that part 1.
In the futurist world, in outer space, in the galaxies, there's like, different. Oh my God, how do I even like break this down? There's like there's different societies. There's different.
In the year of the new gods.
There's different societies. There's the Atreides house. There's the Harkonnen the Harkonnens. There's the Bene Gesserit, the feminine goddess of the universe, like gets possession of the planet Arrakis, also known as Dune, to harvest this substance called spice. that's supposed to give you like internal knowledge and life and all that, and you can see past your past beyond the human mind can go for. And it follows Paul Atreides, the young boy who is sort of like torn between different ideologies, and when a very tragic thing happens within the household, Paul is left on his own to be the chosen one to lead the natives of Arrakis to freedom. That's only one part of the story.
Yeah.
And that's putting it.
And I would say that this is my favorite Denis movie, even though at this point this man has outmastered himself, because this is it was just as big as a masterpiece as I was expecting it to be. It was.
Yeah.
If we wait to see part 2, which I'm very happy that they've greenlit that, we just have to wait another couple years. If part 2 is just fantastic as the first one, then for sure this is my favorite thing Denis has ever done. But we shall see.
Yeah.
Thank God for the green light.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if part 2 is just as great as this one, then like I'll probably just view them both as one big movie, and then it might end up toppling 2049 for me as well.
Yeah.
Where do I begin? For any of our friends that are listening, including you two, this is where I do apologize, because for the past 3 years, really, I've done nothing but talk about this obsessively. For anyone who knows me, I'm a big fan of this book and this series. It's a story that's very, very close to me. It is the sci-fi equivalent to Lord of the Rings in my eyes. It's a book that's responsible for. Go ahead.
It's a mix of like Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. Like it's sort of its new thing now, but you can see like the epic. You can see something new and epic coming into its own with this film, which is nice.
Yeah, and I'm calling it now. Dune will get its own episode one day because there's just too much to say. Probably when part 2 comes around, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I was very scared at the same time, because I everybody pointed out, like, dude, you're hyping this up. I went, I know, but I'm hyping it up for a reason, because a lot of a lot of my standards are basically just people who are excited about something, and Denny, him being a massive Star Wars fan and a smart Star Wars fan, only liking A New Hope and Empire. He's a smart man. This was almost his love letter to that type of story, but done with his tone. And I so rarely see a story done this grand scale. And epic is a dangerous word. It's a very dangerous word because it's used far too often. But I can wholeheartedly say this is an epic, and an epic done well.
This is like textbook epic, and like I hope years from now, when students in like students in film schools years from now are going to be reading like textbooks on like, oh, what are like epic films? Oh, Ben-Hur, Gone with the Wind, Titanic. It's like they're going to see Dune right there, because it's like now.
Oh,
it's just it's so cinematic. It's like, where has this sort of cinema been all this time? Like I'm so fatigued over stuff released by Disney nowadays, where it's just all the same safe playhouse of like, yeah, there's some fun moments, but like this is ultimately just sort of like a stale product.
I mean, look, we all like candy. We all love a quick sugar rush where you go, that's delightfully pleasing, but sometimes you want a full meal. And this this film, no pun intended, is a banquet.
Yeah. But speaking of actually that, with because I working at the movie theater, I'm actually able to see how well the movie is doing, like for all the time. At my theater in particular, it's still playing in IMAX to this day.
Oh yes.
And then I remember being worried because I'm like, Marvel's releasing another superhero movie 2 weeks after Dune, so I figured it was going to kick it out. They kept Dune in IMAX and didn't put Eternals in IMAX. And as I expected, Eternals was just busy the first week, and then it died off completely, and Dune is still doing better than it to this day.
There's hope.
Praise Shai Hulud.
Praise Shai Hulud.
No,
Moyadib.
Moyadib. We'll get there. But listen, this is honestly a film where I truly believe every aspect. The acting, the sound design, the production design. Oh my God, I've never seen it done this well.
Have you guys seen it twice now?
I've seen it 3 times.
Three times. Yeah,
I've seen it 3 times.
The first time, obviously, like there's just again, I can only say like it was just as masterful as I was expecting, but like it was because I as well read the book as like last year. Yeah, it was last year. I read the book and.
Yeah.
A lot of it was very heavy in terms of its themes, but I can understand story-wise what was happening. And there's moments where I was reading it, going like, "Oh, this is going to be really intense." Like the Gom Jabbar scene, the first attack with the sandworm on the crawler, right? Like when it was just eating that crawler. I was like, "This is going to be really intense stuff." And there's some more stuff I don't want to spoil yet that are going to happen in part 2.
No.
Can I just mention, actually, that crawler scene with the sandworm, that first sandworm scene, the way Denis directs it brought me right back to Sicario, like the way he would direct scenes in that movie.
Oh, yeah, like the freeway scene in Sicario.
Yeah.
Except with them, it was wormy individuals. Here, it's a literal worm.
Like, seeing that movie, like, I felt like that initial, like, part where they set foot on Arrakis, like I felt the wind and just sand all over me. Like I just felt like everything was so huge and it was so immersive. Like it and at its center, it's just literally this, like, it's almost like an indie drama, but with like this backdrop of like all these giant spaceships. It's just like, yes, I love being here. I love even in Caladan, like, you know, the Atreides homeworld.
The Atreides homeworld.
Yeah, the Atreides homeworld. It was just so nice being there, and it felt so grounded. Everything didn't have to be so spectacle. It was just like a graveyard and a couple of sets, you know, and like, and Arrakis just felt like its own beast. And the Harkonnen universe, oh my god, like just so sludgy.
Industrial and mechanical and grimy and gross.
Oh my god.
And it continues to get fantastic performances out of every single one of his actors. Everyone in here is perfectly cast and plays it well.
It's the perfect balance of, like, the cast was so perfect where you got some household famous names, but they're people who also fit that character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's like that's the great selling point of the film, is that like it's all an A-list cast. Like it's a very Hollywood movie, but it also, you can tell Denis got like stamp of approval. Like even if there's a director's cut out there, and I'm sure there is, this doesn't feel like a compromised film in the least bit.
No. I won't be surprised if there's an extended cut, but there won't be a director's cut.
I think the only compromise that he had to do was, he's like, I want to do 2 films, but they're like, let's do 1 for now, and if 1 does good, then we'll do 2. So he's like, okay, no worries. And they're probably like, we like this guy.
And
he's not putting up a fight. Yeah. And then the movie does well, actually, financially. It was nicely like marketed, and I'm happy that it did. I'm so proud of Denis with the success of this film. Like I can't stress it enough.
Yeah.
Like it's.
And least we forget, he wants to do 3 of these, so we could have another epic trilogy on our hands.
Yeah, when he said that, so does that mean he's going to make Dune Messiah into 1 film and call that the 3rd chapter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Dune Messiah isn't that long of a book, and it's a perfect leap off full arc because of you know, a lot of people are kind of acquainted to Star Wars. What Star Wars is the hero's journey. Dune is the anti-hero's journey.
Yes, yeah. That's the thing I'm excited for Pat to explore more, because I know that he doesn't know the story as much.
I'm the only one here who hasn't read the book.
And that's fine.
I've read all of them.
It's great. Well, it's great that we have different point of views of going into this material, but that's the aspect, the anti-hero's journey, that I want Pat to experience. Like, ooh, it's going to be juicy.
That's up my alley.
There are so many things I want to say, but I know we don't have that much time. But all I can say is it is a film that single-handedly, everything I love about movies and what I miss seeing in film is in here.
I was gonna treat myself on buying a camera. Like I spent a while trying to save up for a camera and just, you know, pay my dues and all that. Yeah. Then I finally get to buy a camera this year for Christmas. I wanted to treat myself. Oh, after seeing Dune that weekend, I bought the fucking camera right away. I was like,
good boy.
I was like, I'm so inspired. This is why I love movies, and I'm so happy I got to experience it with you guys as well, actually.
Yeah, and it also hit the nail on my head. It's something my brother and I want to do, and I'll probably end up taking more people. I will one day visit Wadi Rum, Jordan.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
You know, it's already been used before in so many films, much like Star Wars with Rogue One, which I enjoyed. but this
Same
solidified it for
cinematographer
me
as
that,
well.
Yeah, there are same cinematographer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
A man by the name of Greg Fraser. Fraser, who's also doing the Batman. Shut up, Hunter.
Oh right, yeah, there we go. Yeah. Doing the Batman. Are you excited to see the Batman, Hunter?
See,
Everything's connected.
See, can I point out more reasons why I'm excited for that? Anyway, don't come at me, Marvel fans. It's fine. No, but again, back to the important thing. Dune. It's I think it's safe to say you and I both. I think it's safe to say both Cody and Pat here are going to be joining me day one of the IMAX for part 2.
Absolutely.
Because this is not only a film you watch. This is a story I've read for years, and it was a world I walked into, and it was better than I could imagine it, or at the very least, he got into not only the beauty of the world, the brutality of the world, the hopefulness of the world. It's just, oh god, I love this.
There's so much.
This movie. There's so much to say, and believe me, when we do the Dune solo episode, I'm gonna go into some deep nerd stuff that even I noticed as a fan of like 1950s and 60s Japanese cinema. That even he did. Oh my god, I'm so. If this film was a woman, I'd marry it. No, screw it. If this film was any gender, I'd marry it.
Do you guys have any favorite scenes in this movie?
Everything from the 0 minute mark to the 2 hours and 37 minutes.
To be honest, I would
narrow it down to anything.
I can't. It's its own juggernaut of this thing that I'm so happy has been brought to life, really, and I encourage everybody to go see it. Just it's one of its kind. Best movie of the year, best movie of the decade so far, and it's set a bar. Yeah. It's set a fucking bar.
Yeah. Yeah. F your sequels, F your franchise, F your universe. It's all about this.
The only issue with the film, the only issue with the film is that it ended, and I'm like, I want more. I'm looking at it as like a glass half full, a glass half empty situation where I'm like, I need a top up right now, please.
It is. Yeah. But a great half glass it is, and more's coming. I won't say I have a favorite scene, but there is a scene in this that I think illustrates why I love it from every aspect. There's a scene which introduces the Sardaukar army, and they're being baptized by their leader, and there's a character by the name played by David Smalch and Peter de Vries who's negotiating to use them. Everything from the sound to the imagery to the way it's shot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Everything about that illustrates what this world is like and how it's done, and it's taken seriously. There's not a what just happened, a self-referential joke every 5 minutes that most movies do. They take their time. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's just I'm head over heels.
I mean, it's definitely a dense book that, there's been many attempts on trying to adapt it before in the past. Like, David Lynch unfortunately tried to do it. Alejandro Jodorowsky tried to literally do this in the 1970s, and then that all fell apart. But it takes a while, and then there's also the mini series that adapted it story wise, but also they have the budget of a science fiction or the budget of a sci-fi channel, which was not really quality. So. Hey, when's Denis gonna adapt Battlefield Earth into a better film? Go back to the book.
I may very well commit harakiri if that happens.
I can just picture the trailer now. Just the Cyclos have ravaged the universe. They're overacting. Their overacting is all I am known of.
You know good and goddamn well that's not happening. Don't leave me with a bad taste in my mouth. All right, I think 11.
6. Yes, I give it a 10. Obviously, like this is incredible.
Yeah. For now, until part 2, because I need part 2 before I can really set it higher, but for now I'm going to have to go at a 9, since I only have the first half of the story.
That's totally fine, yeah. I think a lot of people are in that
both-
same
both
boat,
did
to be honest.
Yeah. That's the only thing holding me back is I just need to know where this goes. So once I get part 2, and if it holds up to what I'm hoping, then they'll both be 10s for me for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I also like what this film has done for artists so far. Like there's a project that I there's no doubt it was helped by this. So Joe Daraski's story, The Incal, is being brought by Taika Waititi. So now, because of the success of Dune, we can get these other weirder visionary stories coming to life.
Yay, new
we have
things.
Dune to
I
thank
remember
for that.
those.
Yeah.
New things.
And also, it's very obvious we'll be there in the theater for part 2. But as well, I think Denis slated to do a HBO miniseries called The Sun, based on a novel. And then he's bringing back his buddy Jake Gyllenhaal to be in this miniseries. I think it's like a crime drama.
Yes.
Yeah,
And he's also
he's
slated to do the first episode of a series called Dune: The Sisterhood,
Yes.
which will be the
Right.
backstory of the Bene Gesserit.
And as well,
It's-
he's slated to do another epic by doing Cleopatra.
Yeah, it's actually funny that you guys earlier mentioned like how his movies remind you of movies from the 60s and 70s, because I remember there was a Cleopatra movie, and I think like the 50s. So it'll be interesting for him to do like his new interpretation of that story, like now with his mentality on how he makes movies.
All we can say is that, Denis, just keep doing what you're doing, because you are bringing hope into the world of cinema.
We have so few people who generally want to do this job because he love it. There are like so few directors I know that want to do this because they want to. It's like him, Chris Nolan, Scorsese, Tarantino, who has like one more in him. But Denny to me is he's the new Spielberg. He's the new Kubrick. He's become one of my favorites, and I won't, believe it or not, I won't fanboy when I meet him. All I want to do is shake his hand and say thank you,
I will do the exact same thing.
and then I'll go home and jerk off.
I love it.
And on that note,
Yeah, what about you, Pat?
Yeah, she's just one of my favorite filmmakers, not even just of today, of all time at this point. Like, I've at least liked everything he's done, but most of his stuff I do straight up love, so... Like, even with my ratings of his movies, like, an 8 or higher is considered great, and I think only 2 of his movies I considered lower than that, so everything to me, I think all of his movies are great for the most part, and I'm excited to see where he goes from here with more Dune, The Sun, and Cleopatra. It's going to be interesting.
Messy, Denny. Messy. Messy. And thank you as well, Hunter and Pat, for joining me talking about my favorite filmmaker of the modern days right now.
oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, this is one of those people I could talk about for days. I mean, let's face it, you us three here, we do this on our spare time anyway. We gush over these types of films, we gush over this director, we gush over these types of stories that we love seeing handled with this type of care. So, it was an honor. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me on. It was really fun to talk. Thanks. Yeah, it was really fun to talk about Denis. Love this man. Happy to be here.
I'd love to have you guys back on to talk about a filmmaker who's the exact opposite of Denis. Who would that be that's all unanimous with? Like, I don't know. Who's done nothing but awful films? Oh,
Neil
this is one guy
Breen.
named Cody. I know Cody MacDonald. I don't know if you ever heard of this guy. Oh my God! Speaking of Canadian, speaking of Canadian filmmakers,
He's always
Cody
working with that.
MacDonald.
He's always working. He's also working with that fugly hack Hunter Birch.
Oh my God! His performance in that Dark Love movie. Talk about dark shit.
Oh.
And did you guys know that he actually doubled for the Joker in Suicide Squad? What a shit!
Oh my God! Career decisions, my ass.
I can tell you some other things about him. That's behind closed doors.
Oh no! I've opened the floodgate of.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Anyway, last thing I'll say before I'm off is I know that a lot of listeners here are definitely fellow friends. I just wanted to say, hey, I wish you all well. Hope all is safe and joyous coming close to the holidays. And yeah, I miss you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and that's a good thing to end off on. Definitely, everyone listening, thank you for subscribing and listening. Or if you haven't subscribed, you should, because we got some great stuff on, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I will see you on the next one. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Bye.